Hey everyone, guess who's missing tonight? I don't know where he's at. He ran off, but we're live. Actually, Clack's just dealing with a late minute customer, and he'll be here in just 2 seconds or 3. There he is.
I am. Here I am. Woo woo. Yeah, I had a last minute pickup, so yeah, got that handled. We are here. Y'all didn't even get to see the project. All it was a. Well, I can show you where it came from.
Oakley.
Yeah, I cut a lot of those things. This lady apparently saw one I did for another lady, and like they, through channels, and so last minute, hey, I need one for a baby thing, so got it done. All right. Good. So how's everybody doing? Glad we made it. Got a little thunder and lightning moving through here. Hopefully it won't be a problem.
Yeah, it's been a little wet here, but hopefully not stormy like the past couple of weeks for us. Most of that's, I think, to our south and west. But 'tis the season.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious who all's going to try to make it up there to our
driveway,
to our Minnesota. What are we going to call it? Minnesota meetup, Minnesota hangout. What we're going to call it?
I don't know.
That'll be the first. Looks like it's going to be the first week of July if everything works out. I will be in Minnesota for those of you that are up that way. So I seen Barb in there commenting. Thought I'd make sure I mentioned that because I don't remember seeing Minnesota custom made in here last week. So if you haven't been made aware, I'm heading to Minnesota in July.
Yeah. So once you actually nail that down, we're kind of really looking at probably that Monday, I think, the 6th.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Because Clark's only going to be here. He's kind of dragging the family a little bit north for part of their family vacation. So he's only going to be here for, a sleep or two. And, they're going to be checking things out here, but we'll hopefully do the live from here. And then that following Monday, I'm working on trying to figure out a good place to do a meetup. And we need to kind of nail that down pretty quick because I'll probably need to start getting a head count. I got a couple ideas in mind, and then we'll hang out a bit. We'll see what's going on. There'll probably be just some shop cleanup door prizes. Hint, hint. Incentive.
Yard sale. I'm getting ready to have a bit of a yard sale here at my place.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll just be kind of fun to have Clack up here and see who in the general area wants to make the trek. Unfortunately, it can't be on a weekend, but because I know that might be more conducive for some more people. But we'll work it in as we can and make the best of it. But looking forward to that in about a month.
Yeah, Radu says, Steve, you have room for a lot of tents. Have like a Woodstock thing up at your place.
If you've watched my second channel, I did do a video on restoring an old A-frame tent. I don't remember what they technically classified it as. 2 people that know each other pretty well will sleep in there comfortably. I think they probably technically called that a 4-person tent. And I have no idea, not 4 of me in there. Yeah, you get 2 or 3 of those in my yard and it's full. So we're definitely not doing a Woodstock event here at my house.
Yeah. Greg said he's retiring in July and you are next, sir.
I imagine there's going to be a few in between this July and when I get to.
I was going to say, you didn't specify which July, did you? Yeah, it's hey, it is a different thing, and like I said, but a lot of folks, don't get me wrong, I still work. I don't work for other people anymore. I work for myself, but I still work. My household budget. It works without me using business money, but let's just say my toys and my my adventures and stuff like that are still financed through my business, like the trips and stuff, all that the business has to pay for. So,
well, and I think a lot of people that are like yourself, they're in public safety or corrections, you know, generally they have that earlier retirement option, right? It's a tough job. It's a physically demanding job. They don't want tired, stressed out older people hurting themselves doing the job. And so they generally have that incentive to retire early because, you know, it takes its toll. Same thing with military, you know, generally speaking, 20 years, you're eligible for retirement. But a lot of people in that position that I know are like you. Like, yes, that's great. It helps kind of cover a lot of the expenses.
I could survive.
But yeah, they're still generally they're 50-ish, and like I'm not done working, and also wanting to, you know, maybe add to the retirement or you know, offset costs and be able to afford some things. So I don't think that's abnormal. It's just great that you have the opportunity to step away from a physically, mentally demanding career and kind of wind into something a little bit easier for a decade or so.
Yeah. And so my wife, you know, she still works. Matter of fact, she works for the same city that I worked for. Like I left and then like she came in the next month. So that helped me with the insurance because I was paying the insurance through my business. And that was a chunk. Like it was a decent little check, and it kind of hurt my feelings to have to write it. So now, you know, I'm able to hopefully put some money back. I've got my wife. The agreement was that she would pay for the insurance, but she wanted to get a different car because we had a child that was getting her license and needed a car. So we're playing like musical cars. And so Brandy got a different car. It's not a new one. I would say it's new to her car. And so I'm providing the money for the new to her car since she's paying for the insurance through her job. So that's kind of how we got that worked out. And so I owe on a car, you know, so I use the money from the shop to pay the car off. And then once I do, the next thing on the agenda is the building fund for the shack. That's the next thing I'm doing. Cause I had the first couple of years, I used all the money to help get me to the point where I could retire. And then I had to pay my vehicle off. Now I got to pay her vehicle off. And then next is going to be the building fund. So hopefully within the next 2 years, hopefully I can start like moving some dirt, planting some posts, something, you know, that looks like building a shop anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of stuff you can do beforehand, but
so if you are, I will say this, if there's anybody that's near here that has a need for a laser, pay attention to my Facebook page and pay attention to the posts. I do have a couple of machines that I'm going to be getting out of here pretty soon. I probably need to get a little bit of money out of a couple of them to help go towards the building fund, but I've got a couple that I want to get rid of. And I know me and Steve are also hoping to bring a gift of sorts to Austin with us if we can, you know, if everything works out. And I've got a machine that I think I'll be able to bring to Austin, hopefully. And that way we can have like a little giveaway or something when we meet you guys over there. But I've got a couple. I've got to make some room for some other stuff that's came in because, as you can see over here where Fluffy's at. Fluffy, why are you licking your toes? Fluffy's sitting right in front of the new LX2, which has turned out to be a pretty nice machine. But I'm running out of storage space around here, so I may have to move some stuff.
Just to clarify, you are going to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, not Austin, right?
Austin, yeah, Dallas-Fort next level maker event, whatever it is. It's not near Austin, is it?
That's gonna be awkward.
Yes,
Grapevine, north
it's
side. It's
near Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport.
Yeah,
I know that because I looked at all the routes. So I guess, I don't know why I said Austin. I don't know why I've been saying Austin. I don't know. I don't know where Austin came from. But yeah, we'll be over there for that. So we'll see how that turns out. But I also have, and I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I've got another machine that a different company makes. I saw some posts on it today, but
It's out in
I
the
haven't got
public.
it.
You can talk about it. It's out in the public.
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw a post with it. So did you get one of those? You do have one, don't you? But it's I don't even remember the name of it. You may actually have to mention it. What is it? A1C? C1A? C1A? A1C? A1C.
It's a really big one.
Yeah, it's huge. So it's the Creality Falcon A1C. And I haven't cut the tape off of mine yet because it's kind of sitting behind some other stuff right now. But it looks pretty interesting from what I've seen so far because they did release some information on it. But I know me and Steve both have one, and we're going to be looking at them. But they're small machines. But we have had a few people recently ask about smaller machines for doing stuff like that. So there's a link to it if you want to look at it. It's one of the newest releases in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they actually asked me if I'd do kind of a beginner tutorial with it, getting started. And so I'll probably have some mixed content of, maybe some short videos, some Facebook posts of just like some testing and whatnot. And then my initial video with it might be, hey, you just bought one of these. How do you get up and running with it? And along with that, of course, I'll talk about doing material tests and throw that in there as well. So yeah, we've done a number of beginner lasers, but it's a continuing trend. People are looking for, still looking for inexpensive lasers to get started with, and companies are taking that to heart. I mean, look at the X-Tool M2, a $600 laser.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have as many tooling options as the M1 Ultra. So I kind of feel like it's the next iteration of the D1, just enclosed with also a swappable print head. So yeah, they're leaning into the beginner one. Creality is, we've done a number of looks at some of the others as well from the popular players. So it is nice to see them not always just jump into the biggest, latest, greatest kind of thing. And so we'll see how those pan out here over the next little while.
Yep. TJ Michael's asking, other than the water and frequency, is a CO2 that much different from running a diode laser? By frequency, if you mean like the light frequency, then that is kind of a big difference in like certain materials like glass and clear things. It does react better with those. And the water, having water is not necessarily always true for a CO2. The budget ones are going to have water coolers typically, whether it's built in or external. But now a lot of them now are coming out with RF tubes, which are air cooled. So, it's not always going to have a water cooler just because it's CO2.
As a matter of fact, the RF tubes are been around longer than the water cooled ones. So
yeah, there's a lot pricier.
Yeah, they are. They are much. Historically speaking, they're a pricier unit, but they last longer. So there are some differences between them. But I would say they're a little more complex than running a diode laser. There are more things that have to be working properly. They're a little less forgiving on mechanical issues and of such. I mean, just for the fact that they all have mirror alignments. Diodes don't. They're all based in that module, and generally diodes don't. There's a few coming out that do, but yeah, there's a little more maintenance and
more moving parts
and mechanical testing with that. So, and then the thing is, CO2, the different wavelength interacts with the material different. So while both will interact with wood, a diode is more of a sintering. It's almost like cooler than the CO2 is more ablating. And so when you go to engrave with a CO2 versus a diode, the diode is more likely to give you a darker engrave faster, whereas the CO2 is going to get deeper before it gets darker, all things in focus. There are tricks and tips around that to kind of help tweak for what you're getting. But If you're going for darker, diode might be great. If you want like a nice caramelized edge on your cut, not so dark, CO2 is going to be a little bit better. There's a lot of little caveats and such in there, but a lot of it comes down to some of the maintenance and then some of the materials they interact with more naturally.
Yeah. What's up, Greg, sir? STL Woodworking. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by.
Since we're on the topic of CO2 lasers, Norbert was asking, is it best to shut down a CO2 laser during gaps in shop time when you're not using it, like over an hour or so? It's generally speaking, yeah, you're not going to damage it too much with a boot up shutdown cycle. But one thing you may want to keep in mind is if you have external cooling for, your chiller versus internal and what your shop conditions are. A lot of these benchtop lasers have a radiator based chiller that's inside the laser. And as the laser is running, it's generating heat. And that is going to warm up that tube faster, even if it's just sitting there, because that machine's going to create heat. It's going to add to the ambient temperature, and generally speaking, inside the enclosed laser is going to be warmer than outside in the shop. So if it's 70 degrees in the shop, it might be 75 degrees in the laser, and that radiator is going to be pumping around 75 degree water, which is about the maximum you want to run a CO2 tube at. So in that case, yeah, it's probably good to shut it down. With others, if you have an external chiller, you can turn the laser off. The chiller is going to keep running, and it's actually probably better for it to maintain the tube. But the machine doesn't need to be sitting there wasting electricity and possibly putting power to the stepper motors. In general, on a CNC machine of any type, whether it be a CNC router, a 3D printer, a laser, depending on its controller, if they're constantly applying power to those steppers, you're constantly running power to them. They're constantly putting, a little bit of torque on them. You're adding a little bit of wear and tear to them, even just sitting idle. So generally speaking, yes, let me rephrase it. I should turn my lasers off when there's large gaps. Yeah. There have been times I've come out after, I ran a job, I ran inside to do something. I come back with large laser. I'm like, well, that's nice. I come out a couple hours later and realize I left my machine idle, and a lot of them will have a meter on it that shows both laser time as well as kind of just powered on time. And so it's something, if it has it, it's good to look at if you're buying a used machine, but it's also, if you're trying to sell a used machine, someone's going to look at that and say, well, it sat idle for 60 days, but you have 10 hours of runtime on it. Why do you keep it powered on? So I don't think there's anything bad about power cycling most of them, but just kind of keep in mind whether that has the integrated water chiller and such, and how that's regulating the temperature.
Yeah. And if your shop was like really, really cold, like let's say in the wintertime, maybe, especially if it's a humid environment and it's really cold, it actually might help because, heating it up can get condensation and moisture out of places or whatever. During the summer and the warmer months, I probably wouldn't. Like you said, it's just unnecessary. But one more consideration for like maintenance is that especially if it's got a chiller, it's going to be, like you said, that fan's going to be running the whole time. And if you're in a shop like I am, where it's kind of dusty, the longer that fan runs, the more dust you're getting pulled into the cooling fins and stuff. And so the more frequent you're going to need to go in and blow out the heat sinks and stuff like that to make sure that they're not getting obstructed by dust. Because like I said, here in a working shop, like I've got here, things get dusty. Like, here's my little remote for my camera. I use this all the time, but you can see just from this weekend, you can see the dust on it. So if I leave something running that has a fan on it, like the computers, for instance, the cooling fins are going to collect that dust, and you're going to have to make sure you hit that with some compressed air pretty regular, or add filters or whatever. I avoid filters because you're going to have obstructions if you put filter material like in a computer fan. You're going to, it's actually going to increase your time that you have to do maintenance.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, I was, of course we always think like current scenario, but winter time, I actually will turn the machines on early. As you said, it helps build up some of that heat. It helps kind of stabilize some things. And or, you know, if I have a separate chiller, I'll even leave that running just as an extra precaution against freezing, because it helps regulate and keep it warm by moving the water and trying to put it at that temperature, not just always cool it. So yeah, it generally speaking, I'll start it off with not using it, but I'd there are some scenarios where it might be fine or actually beneficial to leave it on.
Yeah. Rob Wilson saying I got a win over the weekend. Sold 18 baseball caps yesterday. X-Tool F2 for the win. Thanks for the great tutorial videos. I think we found our niche.
Awesome.
Yeah. Depending on where you are, ball caps can be they can be very profitable. I got a guy here locally that does them, and he does a good job. And that's kind of like he leans heavy into those things, and has done well with it, from what I can tell. So.
Just Alan Jones is asking, are there any tips on removing a 3D print from the bamboo cool plate super tack plate? I'm having a lot of pieces of first layer rip off when removing the print. If you're having trouble with that, yeah, if you're having trouble with that, you know, first off, let them cool. And if they're still really stuck, you could even try sticking them in the freezer for a little bit to even more cool that metal plate. Sometimes that will just cause that metal to, it expands and shrinks with heat and cooling cycles, and sometimes that's just enough to pop it loose. But generally, with most of their plates, as long as you let it get back down to kind of room temp and it's not heated, most of the times that helps ease up the print, but not always. And if you're continually having that problem, then maybe switch back to more of a regular PEI plate instead of the super tack. But yeah, and trying to super cool it real quick with some cool air or even in the freezer is usually a decent enough hack to get stuck prints to pop off.
I haven't had any prints pull apart, but I've had some that were on there pretty well. Flex the super tack a lot. If you flex it like every direction, that helps. But I will tell you, if you get one that's really stuck, use your scraper and just kind of get up under the edge of it and get it, and then you can scrape it off of there. Just be careful not to damage the build plate. But I've been running super tacks on my bamboo because I like the smooth finish that you get with the super tacks is awesome. And like the other day, I was printing this little thing right here. This is like a lens cover for a Logitech camera, but it's got like a removable little window here for the lasers, so that I can do B-roll and not worry about, the blue flash. And even without putting a raft or anything, that stuck to the build plate, printed fine. And when I got through, now I did have to, like I said, I had to bend it and kind of pull on it a little bit, but look at that. That's the build plate surface. That is smooth. And I'm loving the super tacks, but they do hold on really well. But I haven't had any. You know how a lot of times, especially if your cooling's a little bit out of whack, your corners will try to lift up or whatever on your print. I haven't had any of those issues at all with any filament so far using the super tacks.
Trade Skiller Anonymous, JR is asking, so many multi-format machines coming out lately. This is going to give the homebrew crowd a lot of choices and where to get started. What manufacturer has the advantage currently, if any? I think it kind of depends on which multi-format machine you're looking at, because there are some that are coming out I just don't think should exist. There are certain technologies that technically, yes, the machine will do both, but by doing both of them, it does neither very well. And so you're really kind of giving up a lot. And in some cases, I think, such as like the 3D printers turned into lasers, if you're going to switch back and forth from them, I think you're just inviting more hassle and mess. 3D printers, like a super clean build plate, lasers tend to spew vapors onto everything. And I mean, just look at your typical diode laser, the cutting bed on that. Those fumes aren't just stuck on that cutting bed. Now that's where the bulk of them are, but those vapors and fumes get on everything. And so I tend to be very leery of multi-format machines or multi-function machines anyway, that might not mix well. So I don't know. I'm kind of watching them to see where they go and see if some work well. I know there's a lot of people, you look at the M1 Ultra or even that new M2, that they have like the print head and the laser combined. Well, that can be nice. It doesn't always mean that it works well. You might not get as quality of a print, or you might be paying a lot more for your ink cartridges. And some people then also taking that, well, it'd be great if it was a UV printer with a laser. And I think, who is it? ProColored is coming out with one of those. And again, those two technologies,
yeah,
I just don't know that if maybe you limit to some specific types of things, maybe it would work okay. But I don't feel like it's going to buy this and be able to do all of the features together. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on some of that stuff, but I look at a very cautious eye at some of those multifunctions.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because it's, like I said, I get what they're trying to do, but I think it's going to end up backfiring, because for one, in my shop, I'm running like a lot of different machines at the same time a lot, and it just doesn't make sense for me to try to have one machine doing everything. I mean, I need multiple machines doing stuff,
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, even the IKEA Master. So I've been working on that this week, and hopefully I actually started the edit today. So hopefully in a couple of days I'll have that published. And it does have, I mean, it's primarily a 50-watt CO2 machine. It does have a 1.6 watt IR module you can put on the side, and that does expand its capabilities. And a laser of different type maybe play better than, say, a 3D printer and a laser. But as you said, I mean, to put that head on, now you got to power it down, you got to put the head on, you got to change the mode. So where's the gain? I mean, you can't necessarily run both together. Now, if they could do that, maybe then that speaks to, okay, you can engrave in the IR and cut in the CO2, but I tried it, didn't work. So if they could get that to work, then I think you got a killer combo there. But that's two different laser types. If you start mixing too many like manufacturing types or cutting types or additive versus subtractive machining, yeah, I think you start running into more problems and headaches, and you're tying up one machine to do one thing when maybe two separate ones could be running at the same time.
Justin Allen Jones is saying that he's running his bed temp at 70 for the tacky plate, and yeah, that's going to be too hot for one of them. I think I'm running mine at 65 for the Super Tax. They say that you can run it all the way down to like 50. I haven't done that. I'm just running default bamboo settings in the slicer. And if you go in there and you change it to a cool plate, that's why it's called a cool plate Super Tack, is because you can run cooler temperatures on the build plate and still get good adhesion. I'm trying to remember exactly where to look to see the bed temperature that I'm running, but I can't remember exactly where it's at, so I'm hunting for it right now. It's under quality. It's not under quality, is it?
I don't actually have my software installed out here, so.
Well, I just started a print over there, so I'll know here in just a second, because I just started one. Oh no, it's running 70 on this one. So, but I do know that you can run cooler. That was one of the things when I did the research on the Super Tack. Some folks were saying 65, and some folks were saying 70. I'm running PET G, so I'm just running the default from Bamboo, and yeah, they stick on there. And if you try to pull them off before they cool, they're not going to come off real easy. You've got to let them cool. That's why when I buy my build plates, I buy 2 at a time. That way, when I'm printing, I can pull one build plate off, lay it to the side, put another one in there, and start the printer back. And then I can, once that cools, I can pop that print off of there. And if you're not doing that, I would strongly recommend, if you can, to get you a second build plate for that reason. If you're printing a lot. If you're not, or then that's cool too. But when I'm printing stuff, a lot of times, as soon as it finishes, I'm starting another job because I don't want that machine to have to heat up all the way. So as soon as it finishes, before it even does the tone, most of the time, I'm popping the build plate off and swapping them out. When I hear it spool that filament back up.
Mark Patterson's asking, now that Rowley has gone out of business, what desktop CO2 laser would be a good replacement for my XW? Some of that's going to depend on what you want it to do. Because some of them are really great with flat materials, but when you get into wanting to run a rotary, they are often limited to the flat roller style. And that can be limiting and frustrating in and of itself. So if you're looking at just flat cut material, you got a lot of options out there. Even as cheap as the Monport Reno series works pretty well for that type of stuff. But that's one of those where I did see one person who took, I think it was an Atom Stack chuck style, and swapped out the stepper somehow. I'm not sure what else they changed on it, but they allegedly had that running in a Reno. But if you need a chuck style rotary, you're probably going to want to get into the higher.
My RA2, so
not in your, well, you got it to function, but not without doing funky math.
You had to adjust your image rather than the steps per rotation because of the controller.
Yeah, to get it to run like smoothly without, needing an abacus and a graphing calculator.
Yeah.
So if you're needing to do chuck style rotary stuff, you probably need to get into the OhmTech Polar series. The Polar Light, I still haven't dialed in getting a chuck style rotary to work consistently with it. I mean, I've got it to function, but again, trying to dial in the the resizing and calibrating for the steps per rotation and things like that. When I was testing it, it wasn't quite working right, but it may have just been something I was doing. But you had good luck with the Polar. Was it the Polar Plus?
Plus, yeah. Buddy of mine's still using it. So
yeah. Now the IKEA Master is just coming out. They haven't shipped. This is a pre-production unit. They do have a riser base, and their their R8 rotary is supposed to work with it. I don't have the riser or the rotary for that yet to test, so I can't tell you if it does well with that. As far as flat materials, it's done a pretty good job. I did appreciate that they were a little more honest in their advertised expectations. A lot of these companies will say, "Oh, it'll cut 1 inch thick material in a single pass," and it's just not true. But they said up to 13 mil or half inch, and I was able to get through this half inch white aspen, and it was 4 millimeters a second single pass. So you can do up to that, but it really excels pretty well at 1/8 inch material. Cutting out and engraving. I even got a pretty decent dark engrave on that. This is some quarter. I think this is some random 1/4 inch wood, but I did do some cut tests, and so with 1/8 inch Baltic birch, even up to 20 millimeters a second and 100% power, it was getting through the 3 mil or 1/8 inch stuff, and I think 1/4 inch stuff it was somewhere around 15. So far my tests on just typical flat material stuff, pretty decent. And it can still engrave images, of course. This is a couple different settings, a little sneak preview. So as an all-around general laser, it's working out pretty well. It does work well in Lightburn. It also works well in Atom Stack Studio. So that's the latest one I've been trying out, and I'm just waiting to get that riser base, test out that chuck rotary, because I know that's a big kind of requirement for a lot of people is they want to get it to cut acrylic, and they want to have easier success with doing the tumblers. And to do the tumblers well, you want to have a slightly articulating chuck rotary rather than the flat rollers, because that makes it a lot easier for some of these odd shaped ones. So I'm waiting for that to arrive. I believe they said that might ship sometime in June. So it's probably going to be another month before I can really get around to finding out that aspect for you. But there's a number of options out there, and they keep kind of improving them. I guess I would say stay away from anything that's like K40, M40, and then look at some of our past videos too on certain things that you might be looking for in a laser. Like I try to point out what it's maybe better at and where it maybe struggles in most of mine.
Yeah, the Hurricane, Adam Stack's Hurricane wasn't a bad one. As far as the CO2, Klein's using it. He still likes it. So, and cool. It actually had a rotary, the bed slinger, the whole 9 yards, and the bed slinger with it actually wasn't bad. It was one of the few machines that I've ever had a bed slinger attachment that I actually could use.
And I think it's the same one for this.
Probably.
So the IKEA Master is kind of like the update to the Hurricane.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell.
Yeah, the Hurricane didn't have the touch screen, so that's a new thing that they've added to it. Oh, let's see what we got.
So, Greg, unfortunately, that's the same weekend as the Next Level Maker Conference. So, unfortunately, I don't think Clack will make it to that one.
No, Carveco reached out and asked me about it, but we had already we signed up to go to the Next Level Maker event. It was last year because I put it on my last year's budget.
Yeah, they announced that. They announced that sometime this late winter. But the Next Level Maker Conference was well on our radar, and you had already registered. I think I had registered just before they announced the Carveco user conference. So
yeah.
Unfortunately,
and to be honest, it's like I told the guy from Carveco, Philip. Is it Philip? I think it is. It's like I told him. It's unfortunately too, there's several companies going to be represented at Next Level that we work with also. So it's like, I would love to, if I didn't have anything else going, I would definitely have driven over to Atlanta. But being that it's the same week as the Maker event, there was no way.
Yeah.
Just couldn't do it. Let's see.
Diamond State Precision's asking, I wondered if you all put a tarp over an unpowered laser printer while running a CNC or other equipment that is leaving a lot of sawdust. You've talked a little bit about that, maybe making something for like your your UV or something like that.
Yeah, I was gonna make get a sewing machine cover for the UFI because they make sewing machine covers that it's kind of like a boat cover of sorts. Mm-hmm. It's got elastic and you can put it around it. But once I got the UFI here, as long as you keep the doors on it and keep them shut, I haven't had a problem with dust getting inside it. Now it gets all over the outside, but I'll wipe it down and hit it with the air hose before I open the doors. But yeah, it's everything here gets dust in it. You can't avoid it. I thought it was going to be a problem with the 3D printers. And like yesterday or day before yesterday, I was doing stove covers and I was doing all these little hat boxes in here and sanding. And I also had like a 6-hour print going on the P2S. Printing some of my sticky fingers, but I print them with like 80% infill and like 4-layer walls, so it takes forever. And so I was printing those, and when I got through and opened the door, around the edge of the door, it made a puff where this dust was collecting on the seam of the door. But so far, I haven't had a problem with any of the UFI or the 3D printers that I can directly say is because of dust. You know what I mean? Yeah. My bed adhesion on my printer is fine. I do have to go around the shop periodically with the air hose, and I'll open the door, turn on I've got the little hanging wind air filter system.
Plus, I built a filter box on my mini split, so I'll have those running all the time. But I'll go through with the shop and, either with the air hose or the shop vac and clean everything periodically because it gets bad.
It's one of those. It would probably be a good idea too, but it's also an extra thing to manage and worry about. I mean, I have one on my grill that sits outside, my smoker, and it's always a pain when I want to use the smoker. It's like, okay, take this off, and now where do I put it? It's got to go somewhere. And so, for me, it's kind of like a stove cover. I mean, why would I want to cover up the thing I got to use most of the time?
Yeah, but I don't, like I said, the sanding and the power tools, to me, my power tools are way worse than my CNC. My CNC stirs up a little bit of dust, but the dust collection, that Shopsmith dust collection I've got on it, works great. I can run it all week and don't have a dust issue. When I get into dust issues, when I'm running a chop saw, the table saw, the sander, the skill saws, that's when I start getting dust issues.
Yeah.
So it's the CNC is the least of my worries when it comes to dust.
Yeah, not a bad idea if you can be disciplined to do it, because it will help cut down. I actually had one of the CNC machines I had an enclosure around it, which is nice because it helped contain any of the errant dust. But then you really had to be mindful of keeping all of the tracks and the rollers and everything clean, because you get that dust built up on there and have those wheels rolling over it, or the linear rails getting clogged up, then it becomes a bit of an issue.
Yeah, see, you see my little dust. That's my little dust box up there. It's that little wind. It's just got the filter in the back of it that you can change out. It's right there. Yeah. So I can. I got
one right there.
Yeah. See, I got this little remote right here, and if you watch, I got a little rag on the front of it, so I can tell when it's running. You see the little rag stand up. There it goes. But. And now that I'm thinking about it, these some good batteries that's in this remote, because I bought that thing when I first started doing this stuff, and they've been in there all this time. Duracells, that's why. But yeah, and then my air conditioner itself, my mini split. If you haven't ever seen the mini split, see that big box on top of the mini split? It's got there's basically like a household, like a 20 by 24 filter element that's in there, and that's where it draws the air into the air conditioner. So it also works as a dust filter. I just had to buy boxes of filter stuff. That ain't a good air conditioner around here, bro. You need a mini split. I'm telling you. I wish I'd have put a little bit bigger mini split in here. But when I first put that one in here, my budget was really tight. And I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't realize how spoiled I was going to get after having it for a while. Because I used to be in here working and it'd be 100 degrees in here. I got up to 80 something the other day, and I was doing a video, and I could feel the sweat just beating up on my head. I was like,
yeah,
soft.
I was working on this one pretty much solidly yesterday, and it got up to 78. It's cooled off to 73 now.
Yeah.
Donald's asking, is the Xtool F2 UV laser worth the higher price, roughly $1,000 over the com marker? Xtool stepped up their software, but is it worth the price? You've used both. You definitely could speak more to it. I've only used the com marker as far as UV lasers, and that would be one of my complaints, is the software feels a bit like an afterthought. It works, but it feels like some very early laser software. And as a matter of fact, I believe it's kind of a generic software that they've kind of tailored to their needs for it, because it's pretty much identical to the Ohmtech Solus dual source laser. I can't remember the specific source of that one, or the controller on that one. I think they share it, and it works, but it leaves a bit to be desired.
Yeah. I do have both machines. I have the Com Marker Omni X. I have the Com Marker Omni 1. And I have the Xtool F2 UV. and that's the one I use. I'm just going to be honest with you. If I'm spending my money, if you can squeeze it, if you can get it, I'm buying the X tool. I mean, the framing laser alone is so much nicer than the Omni X and the Omni One. I love my Omni One. It works great in Lightburn, but that framing laser, because even using the paddle, the frame that it shows you is 4 or 5 millimeters above the surface of the material, so it's not exactly correct. The only true way with it to be able to see where it's framing and get it exactly right on the material is if you use like baby powder or something like that, that you can and darken the room so that you can see it interacting with the laser. That's so. Me personally, I go to my X tool for the UV. I mean, it's just, and like Steve said, the software with Omni X, you can't do curved surface. You can with the X tool. So that's a big thing, because with glass, if you have a glass that's not perfectly flat, it has a little bit of curve to it, you are going to drive yourself crazy with an Omni One or an Omni X trying to engrave that correctly. Whereas with the X tool, you do the curved surface mapping, hit the button, and it works. So, because I had a lady that she had a laser that should have been able to do those glasses, but it didn't do curved surface, and I wound up having to do the job for her. So that's the biggest thing is the curved surface stuff with the X tool works better. The rotary stuff with the X tool works better, and you have the framing laser. So those are the three biggest differences. So, and I know it's more expensive. I get it. That's just part of it. I mean, if you want those functions, then you just, to me, that's the way you go. Now, there are other machines out there right now, like the Sculpt Fun and some of the others that I have not tried. Even the We Create machine, I haven't heard anything terrible about it yet. So there are other machines out there. I know Creality just announced the T1 that they're coming out with. So there are other UV machines on the market right now. But currently, the ones that I have in my shop, the X tool is the most valuable one, in my opinion.
And you also have to look at some of the other features of X Tool Studio that just work fairly well for someone new. You know, their photo manipulation is a lot easier than even Lightburn in many ways. It handles things a little bit. It holds your hand a lot more. Now, it doesn't always give you the finite customization that Lightburn gives you. But for someone trying to get started and have some quick wins and not get frustrated by why isn't this working, that is one of the areas I will definitely give them props on, is that they make, you know, initial success a lot easier to obtain.
Yep. Mike said next level is awesome. Looks forward to seeing us there.
Yeah.
Whew. We hope to be there and have a good old time. That's for sure.
Mr. Brian Smith says, sorry I'm late. Unpacking stuff still, and takes longer than I expect every day. Well, hopefully you get that finished. Hopefully you've heard that David is going to be invading the north here in the first week of July.
Yeah, Brian, I expect to see you up there, sir.
I'm going to need a little backup from this high-tech redneck. So make sure you pay attention to that, and hopefully you can swing down and.
Yeah. Ryan, get on in there. Come on, let's go. Load up, head out, sir. If you quit going to Disney World every 3 weeks, you can go. I think Brian's been to Disney World more times than I've been to town to get groceries.
Yeah.
Tim says, Clacker, you still using bamboo filament PET G color selection is horrid. Yeah, I use here lately. I've been using mostly bamboo when I can get it. If I can't get it from bamboo, I've been ordering Amazon. What is it? Overture from Amazon. There are cheaper ones out there, but those are the two that I've had really good luck with, and I'm using it to make things to sell, and so I'm okay with what it costs. Yeah. But yeah, right now, that's what I just got in for. Friday, I got in 4 refills of black Pet G because that's what I used most of.
Paul Weiland says, I want to get a mini split, but the installation is way too much. You can get kits cheap, but I'm in the city of Clearwater and they require a licensed contractor to install. And yeah, that can be a bit, I hear you. I've had some quotes done on them, and what a DIY similar one might run $1,000, $1,500 suddenly becomes $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for licensed installation. And depending on your city code and maybe your homeowner's insurance, things like that, you definitely, you got to pay attention to those things when doing some of this stuff, or you could find yourself in a world of hurt if there's problems down the road. So I hear you on that. I also just have some issues here with the way power is, and when I built this shop, this garage, it was kind of a unplanned surprise to me. And so financially, I wasn't really there to buy the best materials across the board. So I did what I could. No, not necessarily corners were cut, but like structurally, I made sure structurally it was sound. But when it came to the siding, it's just, cheap vinyl siding.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Corners were cut, less electrical and cheaper siding.
Well, yeah, I mean, ideally, if I would have dropped service straight to here from the pole, but yeah, I've got a sub panel.
I get it. Like I built this shop on $1,000 budget a long time ago.
So part of my problem is vinyl siding doesn't like having holes poked in it or things mounted to it, so it's almost like tear part of it off, reinforce it, repatch it back in and such like that. And so there's all these little things that start adding up when you look into it. It's not just, hey, here's a $1,500 mini split. It all of a sudden, even if you do it yourself, can kind of become a bit of a headache. So I hear you on that one. And that's kind of why I'm also in the same boat. The other thing that kills me is that when I built this, I worked with the lumberyard architect to do all the plans and the design. And I really wasn't thinking much of the type of window I needed. And so instead of getting a normal, like double hung, top down slider, I have a side to side slider, which if I had a normal one, I could probably have dropped just a regular air conditioner in that window temporarily and be a lot more comfortable, even though it might not be ideal for it. It would probably at minimum take the humidity way down and add just enough cooling. So hindsight, there's a number of different things I could have done to prep for that. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too, is that just, it's not just the cost of the mini split. It's all the snowball effect of everything else I need to do to make it happen.
Well, that's like, I had to insulate this building after I had everything in here because I had no insulation. So I had to take the tin off the outside and insulate it from the outside. And it's not the best job of insulation. I mean, it's better than what I had. But this literally was a pole barn and like had a dirt floor. I built it to park my boat, my tractor. And years ago I had a motorcycle. Those parked in here. And then it evolved into a shop, and I poured a slab, and then I boxed it in. And then eventually I put the mini split in. But before I put the mini split in, I had to insulate the walls and the ceiling and everything. And so I did that in phases. Like I did the ceiling, and then I did this wall over here, and I did this wall, and I did the back wall. I did them like phases. Like each weekend I would just do a different wall. So, but yeah, it's been a game changer. My next shop, I'm going to be a lot more prepared when I build it for what is to come, I hope. So we'll see.
Yep. But yeah, there's it's always easier to warm things up than cool them down. So,
yep. Chris said he loves the red flaming light on his Sculpt Fun UV. I really wish I could get my hands on one of those Sculpt Fun machines, because it seems like they learned some lessons from the Omni One and kind of come up with a little bit better one. Three Dogs is asking, does the X tool work with Lightburn? No. I mean, I'm not going to say that it won't, but you don't want to work it with Lightburn because then you just threw away all them features that you paid extra for.
Well, and most of them that do like the internal subsurface engraving, Lightburn's not set up for that yet. So for that type of engraving, you pretty much have to go with whatever their software is for it. Things like the Omni 1 flat engraving, yes, works beautifully with it. But yeah, and you're seeing that on more and more of these lasers, even outside of UV, with any of their kind of special features and proprietary type things.
Yeah,
Lightburn is they're trying to cover as many lasers as they can, as many features as they can. So it often is well, we're working with them, but not yet. And so you kind of have to make your decision on, are you okay with their software? Because that compatibility may never come. But they are working with them on a lot of vendors, like Hassel Laser has been working with them, sent them some units, and they've been working back and forth to try to make sure that works well with their laser. And you see that in the back end, but on the front end, you're often kind of left waiting. And so I always caution you with anything, don't go on what's promised to come in the future. Go with what they are offering at the time of sale. Because, you buy something like these modular lasers, like the S1 from X-Tool, that, they kind of hint at, oh, we'll be able to develop modules for it later. They don't often materialize. And then all of a sudden there's a new model out with all the things you wanted, but they're not available on yours. So always purchase based on fact at time of purchase, not necessarily what they preach may come.
Yeah, that's you never know. Chris said he saw G-Wake just released a G2 30-watt UV. I haven't saw it, but I do have this. And so far, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. So far, I like that thing. It works with Lightburn if you need to use Lightburn for, say, like using some of the variable text functions or whatever in Lightburn. If I need to use them with this machine, I can. If I want to do the embossing, though, like Steve said a while ago, if you're going to do like this deep embossing and stuff like that with this, even though it's a 60-watt MOPA, 40-watt blue laser, if you're going to do this deep embossing using a STL file, you have to use the G-Laser software, which is basically the same as the Com Marker software. It looks the same. I will say G-Lasers felt a little more refined. Like the G-Wake software, it didn't have as many issues. I didn't have as many issues with it as I did with the Com Marker, but now it could just be that there was more updates been done. But yeah, I like that machine. So maybe if they do come out with a 30-watt UV or something, I'd be interested.
Yeah, I'd be curious where that's at. I know they have their 5, 10, and 15-watt ones that are more of the traditional style, but I haven't seen the 30-watt one. So,
but yeah.
JR is asking, does the X-Tool software have repeatable text tool like Lightburn? We've mentioned that to them, and they've said, yeah, that shouldn't be too hard to implement, but I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think you may be talking about the IR because I'm not seeing a G-Week. Yeah, I think you may be talking about the one I have back here, the G3 30-watt, because he said what do you call it? A G3?
G2, I thought.
G2. I didn't saw that. But no, trace killers, as far as like you're talking about the variable text function, no, it doesn't have it yet. But like literally, we talked to, I think it was actually the owner, Jason, the owner of X-Tool, when we was at SCES that time, and we told him that's one of the tools that y'all need to add because a lot of people have the the need for that function. Now the G3 is the one that I have right here. It is not a UV. It's a 30-watt MOPA, 60-watt MOPA, and 40-watt diode. The one that I have, this one here, is a 40-watt diode and 60-watt MOPA version. It's pretty awesome. I like it so far. It has taken the place of my other 60-watt MOPA that I had because this one can do the blue. So I've been using it on wood. and it can do the MOPA stuff, which is not. I don't do a lot of metal marking because it's just not really what I'm into. I'm more of a woodworker. But when I do need to mark metal or some plastics or something like that, I do use a MOPA. So it's good to have one out and available. And I do like playing with like the slate, and like I got some aluminum that I did. I did these aluminum blanks on the G-Wake over there, using the MOPA, using the embossed STL. You upload a STL to the software, and it, after so many passes, it'll drop the Z-axis, and so you can get a lot deeper engraved than you could if you were just doing a flat, SVG or something. It's pretty neat. You can do that with a lot of the other machines on the market, but it's the first time I've had a 60-watt MOPA that would do it.
So Derek Hodgson is asking, CNC dust collection or enclosure or both? What would you start with if both? You really want to have the dust collection and the dust boot to be the most effective. An enclosure is great as kind of like a second line of defense, and it has the other nice feature of sound control as well. Because even if you've got a water-cooled spindle and whatnot, those bits will make a fair amount of noise going through the material. But you really want to be picking up the material off of the tool pathing and help keeping that clean. It's not feeding that back into the flutes by leaving it in the path and such. So I would always go with dust boot collection first, and then if you can, it's nice to enclose it as well, just to kind of help any errant dust will really be enclosed there, and the big benefit there being kind of the sound control as well. So I kind of feel an enclosure on a regular woodworking CNC machine to be kind of optional, whereas the dust boot is technically you can run without it, but then you're probably hovering over the thing with a shop vac, chasing the chips and such. So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, to me, dust collection is not optional with a CNC. It's just, you got to have it, because not only if you stuck it in an enclosure without dust collection, your spindle's going to be choking on dust, because it's going to be, especially if it's an air-cooled spindle, it's going to be sucking that dust right through the spindle. If you're using a trim router, it's even worse, because now that trim router is just going to be eating dust constantly. I personally don't want my CNC in an enclosure. That depends on also how big your CNC is. Mine's 4 foot by 4 foot. There's places where I'm trying to do work holding, or, doing like putting Aura mask on or something like that I have to get a stool to be able to reach it just about, because you have to be able to walk from one side to the other, because my arm's not long enough to reach across a 4 foot work area. So with my machine, I would not want it. If I was going to put it in an enclosure, it needed to be in its own little room. That way you could walk around it. Now, if you had like a 40 by 40, 400 by 400 or 800 by 800, you probably could. But me personally, I don't want mine in a enclosure.
I mean, I've seen some decent designs. I mean, I would agree with you. You got to put some forethought into it, because there's access for just general maintenance, access for clamping and such. But I've seen some pretty good designs where maybe they have like a little roller system, so you can move the whole thing forward, move the whole thing back. But yeah, it's not as simple as just putting it in a box and having a door on it.
Because you start like on mine, you start trying to clean the lead screws or the ball screws or whatever. The ball screws run down the front, around both sides from front to back, and they're on the outside. Yep. So I've seen some pretty decent ones, but like you said, you would definitely need to think it through, because if you messed up, you'd be crawling up inside there to do stuff.
But yeah, it's something I've thought about doing for one of these smaller, like the 4040 Pro Max, is building an enclosure and being able to run that down in the basement. But for that, I'm looking at both dust control, secondary layer, because I definitely don't want that dust getting loose in the house. Yeah. But also adding some sound panel to keep the sound down on it.
Now, I have thought about if I had a big enough shop and was able to do it, I would love to be able to have like a little partition room, just enough room to where you could walk around the machine all the way around it, and just have it in a room to where you had like a glass door or something like that. That would be awesome, because you could get that noise over there by itself. But in my small shop, I can't do that. So
it is what it is.
JR is asking, did you guys get your Common Omni machines working at a higher output yet? So the Omni X, they sent us upgrade modules from first it was 5 to 10, but then apparently it was 5 to 12 watt output, and the calibration was kind of messed up.
Says 10 on it.
They did finally send me a new version of software and new core files for a variety of focal distances. I did do enough testing to kind of confirm that it's working close enough. I mean, it's the percentage that it's off is kind of within acceptable engraving standards. Now, if you're going to cut interlocking parts, that might be an issue, but we're talking about a Galvo machine that you're not going to get interlocking parts. They're always going to have a kind of an angled cut to them. So the problem with that is it kind of came in with a lot of other, busy time for me with graduation. I had this machine that I was working on. I had, I think there was another machine I was working on, along with just general orders and business. So I told him, I said, I will get to it when I can. Thanks. And I hope to get going with that soon, be able to test it out and finally see how well that one maybe works at 12 watts. But so yes, but I haven't actually done much testing with it, but it does seem to be at least calibrating within reasonable accuracy. I
haven't gotten mine out of the attic yet. I was waiting to Steve to do it since his was where he could get to it. But they haven't reached out to me per se, but Steve did forward me the stuff that he's got, and I'm going to try to get mine out and update it because I hate to have a 10 watt. Well, 12 watt. It says on it 10 watts, but they're advertising as 12 watts. But I hate to have a 12 watt UV laser just chilling in the attic, because I've got the Omni right here, the Omni 1. But if I can just get the Omni X to where it can do what this one does, but do it as 10 watt machine, then, I'm good with that. Because I liked the output power. The problem I had before was just that nothing was to scale. Like you could draw a 30 millimeter circle and it just was all out of whack. So, but Steve says it's within workable tolerances now. So as soon as I get some of these other machines out of the shop, I plan to get it down and go over it again and hopefully get it back working. So, because I feel like it's a waste being up there where it's at in the attic. So,
yep.
What's up, Rich in the house? Louisiana hobby guy, if y'all hadn't heard of him.
Speaking of Rich, I'm using your one of your, I forget which flavor this is. I think it's the cranberry something or other of that stir stuff for water, and my wife's been enjoying that too. So thanks for that recommendation last week.
Cool.
All natural flavorings and sweeteners and just a nice water additive. So,
have you noticed that it started shading the comments once we've posted them to the screen?
Yeah. It kind of puts them in a lighter color. So
yeah, I was like, what is going on? But then I got to realizing that's the ones that we've tagged. That good job, StreamYard.
Yeah, it seems like maybe every other time I log in, there's a pop up of like a new feature. So they definitely, I mean, you pay a pretty penny for the software and service, but they do seem to continue to add.
Yeah, that hurt. Because the thing about it is too, I had to put it in my calendar because it's like you're just tooling along and all of a sudden it's like a pop-up from PayPal. Boom. You paid StreamYard. And I'm like, oh. So, because I had it on my checking account and I was like, I'm going to put that over on PayPal because, but I've gotten to where I keep a balance in PayPal because I'm paying a lot of stuff out of PayPal now. But that's where a lot of the incoming money ends up going to. So it works out.
So Rob Fight's asking, I don't have Sasquatch length arms like Steve, so I've been using the emergency stop button on the alien cell to turn it off. Am I doing any harm to the machine turning it off this way?
Shouldn't, as long as it's not firmware updating. I wouldn't think.
Yeah, I'm not, so
because all it does is kills the power to the power supply to the main.
Well, I'm curious on that because like a lot of computers, they actually have soft power switches, so they never like actually turn off. They do kind of a shutdown and in matter of fact, or even more of just a soft power off and not a hard power off. And so the e-stop really truly is cutting power immediately to the full laser, the full motion control, everything. So you want to use that when you're having an emergency to stop everything, be able to get it out of the way and not be fighting the machine while an emergency is happening. And so cutting hard power to computers is often bad, but as you mentioned, a lot of these machines with just the power switch, you're not doing a shutdown cycle like you would with the computer and such. I just don't know if there maybe is like any sort of soft power switch behind that, that the emergency stop would be different. I would doubt it, but maybe Rich knows a little bit more on that as well. But
yeah, I don't think there's other as far as storage, like any kind of files that might be open, it might be interacting with. It's a Linux operating system, so it should run like, Ubuntu or any of the other Linux systems. Yeah. And as far as I know, it shouldn't.
So yeah, Rich says the e-stop is the same as the power switch, something I also asked the engineer. So yeah, you should be safe with that. Just be mindful on some devices. A hard power off can be detrimental to, like file systems and memory storage. So.
Yeah, especially if it's got like a working file that it opens and edits as it goes, and it has to save it before you power it down. Like with computers, that's kind of one of the things with computers is like they like to save their last known configuration to a file as you close. That way, when you power it back up, it just accesses that file. But yeah, I hope there's not a problem with it, because that's the way I do mine. Because same situation where they put the flip switch on the back, I can't reach it. So
it's so. I mean, that's one of the complaints I have on the X-Tool P3, and because with my longer arms, I'm usually reaching around and just like, okay, where is it? And it just feels like it's just barely within reach. And I'm like, it's the power button. Come on, this should be you don't want to be bumping it, but it shouldn't be on the back side of it. So
yeah, that's kind of like par for the course with these companies is they put the switches in like the most inopportune places.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will give Laserpecker on the new LX2 is some of these companies like to put the air vent sticking out the back, and then you got cables popping out this side, then you got other cables popping out that side. Everything is in the back on this one. So I do like that, because you can't put it against the wall anyway because of the airline. So all your connections are in the back. I think that's streamlined a lot better. That's the one thing that irritates me about Alien Cell is all the plugs are right there in the front, sticking out the side. And like, I don't like putting hard bends in cables. So it's like I have to leave like a foot of space beside it to work those cables around. I wish they'd either recessed those or made them to where when you plugged them in, like the cable was going up instead of out. That would be a big, you know what I mean? So that the cables would be plugged in and then they could curl over, and maybe even put me a little place over there with like a little strap so I could cable everything. But
yeah,
I've been having issues with my air assist staying on after I turn my machine off. The little fan inside the air assist on the Alien Cell has started staying on, so I have to power it off and back on to get it to quit.
Is that just connected via Bluetooth or hardwired?
I've got it connected with the USB cable and got it paired with Bluetooth. So I've tried. I've thought by having the cable on there, maybe it would go off when the machine went off, but it's still like it's the cooling fan inside it. It's just a real small hum. So I don't know. I got to check.
Maybe it's too hot.
It shouldn't have been, because the last job I ran, what did I do? Oh, I cut out some arrows today for a job I was working on, a sign I was building. I was just cutting out literally just two arrows that were about 14 inches wide. And and then the fan in the air assist stayed on for a good 10 minutes after the job was over with. And I got ready to leave. I had to turn it off.
I haven't noticed that with mine, but maybe it's weird.
It may be a firmware update for the air compressor needs to be installed or something. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, so Michael Osborne's asking, do you know anything about Daja fiber lasers? DAJA? I'm looking into a low-end fiber to learn on. I don't know that I've heard of them.
Oh, when I search them, they got a website. There's a website. Looks like they've got a Mr. Carve showing. Ain't that the company that kept that little folding? Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Then they got an M series. I mean, it looks like it's a lot of the parts are coming from the same places, but I will tell you, the software is a lot of times where they get you. Com Marker and Monport both have some pretty reasonable, like lower powered fibers. But I'm not familiar with that company.
Yeah, I don't know that I mean, if they've emailed me, it's been one of the ones that,
I think that little Mr. Carve on the left over there, I think me and you both got that one because it was the one that you could like fold it up and put in a backpack. But I don't know that it was coming from this company though. But a lot of times, they all make the same product, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I would see if there's any like real reviews out there for the one you're looking at, and hopefully from someone you recognize or have seen other stuff from. Kind of get the feel there. There's a lot of kind of, I would say, like third tier laser manufacturers out there that often will just rebrand other stuff or take kind of the lower end products and try to put some inexpensive ones out there. And sometimes they're gems, but sometimes, yeah, they cut corners and you're kind of stuck. I get the idea of wanting to not spend a lot of money to learn on something, but you kind of want to make sure that what you're getting to learn on actually functions properly. So you're learning and not fighting problems.
Yeah, you don't want to get frustrated and just quit. So gotta be careful. There's a fine line.
So, but yeah, I unfortunately don't have any real experience with them or know anyone who's used one.
Yeah. Rob says, Clack, are you pronouncing G-Week or G-Wake like Future Clack? Yeah, well, my contact, because I messaged her because I was AIing it and Googling it and everything else, and it kept saying it was G-Y-K and all these. And so I just asked her, I was like, how do you pronounce the name of your company? And she sent me back and she said it's like G-Wake, like wake up. And I'm like, okay, so that's what we're going with. So yeah, but so far, like I said, their machines do tend to be a little more industrial in operation. Like if you were like somebody that had never touched a laser, you might not like their software because there are things in there that if you don't know the jargon and if you don't know have an understanding of lasers, there'd be a bigger learning curve. But so far, I'm enjoying the machine. So we'll see. Trying to catch up on these comments. Woo woo! Hey, go ahead, burn car print. Knock it out. I don't think I've sold none of them things since Steve and all the rest of them sold every one of them that they had, and then I got left over with the scraps. So feel free.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I've been there with other machines. And that's one of the struggles is I don't necessarily, like the X Tool M2. They did offer me one, but they offered it to me like 3 weeks ago or something. They said, hey, we've got this coming out and we want it launched by this. And I'm like, I don't have to, you're asking me way late to the party. I don't like running a machine for like 3 days and putting out a video on it because sometimes problems develop over, 20, 30, 40 hours of use. And you don't see that, you unbox it one day, you run a few jobs, put a video out. I just don't, you can sometimes tell the people who have just whipped through a few and didn't really spend a lot of time with the machine because they're not really, they're reading the marketing information. I don't like doing that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I struggle with taking those on.
Well, my thing is that they offered that one to me. Now it's been a little longer than what
than 3 weeks. I mean, it's been a while since but it was during that same time of, hey, sign this contract right here saying that you're going to do 16 videos for us a year. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. I mean, I probably will mention X-Tool in 16 videos throughout the year if they, if they continue to have relevant products, but that's not something I'm going to sign a contract for. So I'm just, and I think it was the UV printer, whatever, they were trying to leverage hey, we'll send you this M2 and then we'll put you on the list for the UV printer. And I'm like, the M2, nothing against it, but I mean, they're it's an inkjet printer in a laser. And that's just not something that I'm really, I mean, the UV, you can UV print on 3D printable stuff. I don't want to get too far off in the weeds into the crafting world to where I'm in here trying to do cards and paper and stuff like May does, so I even talked to May. I'm like, hey, is this something you're interested in? I'll come help you with the video because your people, the crafting world, they might actually like that machine. It's a 10-watt laser that can print and do the cards and card stock and stuff that she does. And she's like, I don't really want to get into lasers. And I'm like, well, I don't really want to get into that far off into crafting either. So, so it just didn't fit. It just didn't fit what I wanted to do, to be honest with you. And I'm not obligated to them. And so I didn't take it.
Yeah. To your point with if you don't get on the kind of the initial wave of those and you post yours months later, man, the views are different. The affiliate sales are different. And, I'm glad that that's kind of like a tertiary goal for me. I mean, I like people to watch my videos. It's nothing worse than putting a video out there and you're like, wow, it looks like my family watched it, I guess. Thanks. But yeah, it's very interesting to see if you don't catch that initial wave, how, sometimes even just the views on the video don't follow. So you gotta come up with different ways to get the attention.
Yeah. Well, Cody in the house. What's up, Cody? How are you, sir?
Good to see you.
I got notification today that I got my little order of Genie Bits is I think it's supposed to be here tomorrow. So
cool. So Rob Wilson says, after seeing the quality of the engraving from the diode laser on my F2, I miss the quality and want another diode. I do love the power of my OhmTech CO2, but miss the diode world. And that's, if you want high quality engravings, getting like a 6-watt diode, it's amazing the detail that those will bring out with their fine spot size. And it does suffer from, it's its fine spot size. It takes longer to cover an area. But between, the darker burn and less aggressive cut and the detail, you definitely over time can see it on certain projects. So that's where it is nice to not necessarily have like one machine that does it all, but you have the CO2 for doing the production runs and the cutting, and maybe the diode for doing the customizing and the engraving, and or even a Galvo diode for doing easier alignment and engravings on certain items. So it is nice to be able to have those. But I also understand, between finances, space, and whatnot, not everybody, can just buy another machine to get a different effect going.
Just got an email. A MOPA is still the 1064 nanometers range, right?
MOPA?
Yeah. I mean, it's still a fiber, right? Its source is still a 1064.
You're asking the guy who's never had a MOPA?
Well, I mean, because the only difference really is the Q switch. If I'm not mistaken, I think the wavelength is the same. I just got an email in there saying that it's not an IR laser, but I'm pretty sure it says on it it's a 1064 nanometers, which is the infrared range.
No, it should be in that 1064, as far as I understand. But like I said, I've never had one. I guess it will depend on the source though, because there are different types.
60 watts at 1064 nanometers. It says it on the bottom of it, 60 watts at 1064 nanometers, which is infrared. Okay, I'll deal with that later. But they're like, can you correct your video? You said it was an IR laser. It's not. It's a MOPA. And it's like...
Jared Lyons asking me, I'm just catching up. I saw you say so far Kia Master has been doing okay. I purchased one. Initially said ships end of May, now end of June. Any idea? My only worry is their support. Yeah, as far as I understand, they're expecting their shipment. So like I don't have the riser base yet, and the rotary, but I believe they told me that they expect those to be in the warehouses sometime in June. So I think they're planning on being able to ship out the purchases sometime in June, but you know, there's all sorts of logistics there. They could get them and have to, you know, spend another week or two getting them out of customs and who knows what. But yeah, that's the latest I've heard. But you know, I don't have a whole lot of extra information or insight on that. But yeah, so far it's been a decent CO2 laser for just, you know, flat material, acrylics. I've been playing with the IR module, and IR modules on gantries are not my thing, but it does work. So far I've been happy with it. If you're looking for a more portable CO2, I would say this is probably the most portable benchtop one, unless you're starting to add, you know, the external air pump and things like that. Then it becomes a little bit less. But as far as physically being able to move this one, it's probably the least awkward one for me to try to move by myself, but it is still, you know, 60 plus pounds. So I wouldn't want to like carry it up a spiral staircase or something. Forget about hoses and power button. What about getting to the laser tube and water reservoir when the screws to remove the side panel are on the bottom of a 150-pound machine? Yeah. I don't know if you're talking about like the Reno or one of their bigger machines, but that was one of the things that frustrated me about the Reno is to really get access to more of the frame and the internals, you had to take some screws out of the bottom, like straight down. So you almost had to have it hanging over a table or block it up somehow. So yeah, sometimes the engineers don't really think about service. I mean, just try replacing a blend door actuator on any vehicle. I swear those things are installed before they're installed before the anything else. Ryan says you could probably do 16X tool videos in a week.
No, not unless they got something interesting. I said, it's one of those things. I don't. First of all, I don't want anybody else telling me what content to do on my channel. If they were as good at it as they like to think they are, sometimes they'd have, they wouldn't be needing me to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm just, call me arrogant or whatever, but it's my channel. I'm gonna do what I want to do, and if you don't like it, then we don't got to work together. So
y'all heard it. I can call them arrogant.
So yeah.
And Barb says,
I'm responding to this email, which I get these people are salespeople. They're not technicians or whatever. But don't ask me to correct a video because I referred to it as an IR laser when it is in fact, and I just checked, their specifications even says 1064 nanometers. It is in the infrared range.
Yeah.
So
Barb does say she appreciates the reviews after the machines have been run several months. And that's also a good way to see that it's a laser that I've liked enough to use in future projects and down the road. I try to, utilize them as much as I can, but as certain machines come in and out, I can't keep them all. And I like to move them on to other people when I can. And in some cases, I tried to be more picky about what I take on, but in some cases they just don't fit into the flow. Like these beginner ones, they're perfectly fine for what they are, but they're, you're not going to have, an X Tool M2 is not going to take my Alien Cell X1 off the bench, right? But yeah, I try to follow up on some of the machines either through project videos or occasionally just some follow-ups, because that's where the comments are nice. When people ask a certain number of questions, it builds into a video of like, hey, I've gotten a number of questions on these. Let's cover some of them. So, and Rob says, don't sell our souls for the videos. Well, we definitely try not to do that. Let's see what else. So Rich has recommendations for high quality engravings. Get an RF CO2. My one laser XRF does the best engravings I've ever seen with a spot size of 0.04 millimeter. Yeah, that would be really nice. And especially if you're doing just engravings, even then getting that into a Galvo style. I've seen a couple of those start percolating up in a more of a small business hobbyist kind of size. But I've got some lines on maybe some RF CO2s that I might be able to finagle one into my shop, and that'll be kind of a nice comparison. Is looking at the engraving quality between those. Mark Patterson says hashtag Steve needs a MOPA. It's one of those things where, yes, I would like to have some firsthand experience with one, but I'm kind of like Clack. My metal engraving is limited. I got piles of wood in here that I work with. And so MOPA would be good from having more hands-on experience and being able to better speak to them. But I'm not going to bend over backwards for one, or I don't want to get one in and try to like put out a video like I'm some expert in MOPA lasers, I try to do my research. I try to make sure that I get enough experience before I put a video on even any product that I'm comfortable with. I want to know and understand the machine before I put information out there. I'm not always going to get it right. Occasionally I'll screw up, but I try not to rush it for that reason, as well as I want my information to be accurate. So yeah, I'd love to get one in, and I think I will eventually, but it hasn't been as high on my list as other things.
Like I said, I play around with them, but if I didn't have a MOPA tomorrow in this shop, it's really not going to affect my revenues, because nothing that I sell on a regular basis do I need the MOPA for. Like, I had a 20-watt fiber, just a straight up com marker B4 20-watt fiber. You can do like metal marking on stainless steel and stuff like that with it. It works just as well, and just for doing black engraving. The deep digging into metals and stuff like that is a lot easier with the MOPA. The whole color thing is a gimmick. I would never, ever, ever bid a job and say, I'm going to take this piece of stainless steel and I'm going to engrave you these logos with these specific colors on your logo. I'm not going to do that, because if I come in here and it's 80 degrees, it's going to work different than it would if it's 60 degrees. If it's too many variables, that's just asking to waste blanks. And because it's not like a piece of wood where if you engrave it with a blue laser and it messes up, you could slide it through a planer or hit it with some sandpaper and try again. With that stainless steel, once you mark it, like you really can't, like it's there. Even if you try to go over it again, it's still going to show through. Like you can't get it off of there. So as a business model, it's cool to play with if you're doing it as a hobby, but there's no way I would bid jobs to do color engraving. I'm just not. Like, it's just not a thing. It's cool when it accidentally happens and it looks neat. It's cool, and I can make color. You just can't always say for sure what color it's going to be. Blue is a really easy color to get, and I can try to make a blue engrave, and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Yeah, Rich agrees with me. Yeah, I don't know why. They're like, hey, we spoke with our engineers, and they're saying that you referred to this machine as an IR. It's not an IR, it's a MOPA. And I'm like, what?
I think sometimes that gets to like the base terminology of, there's the technical language versus the marketing language. And when people think of an IR laser, they're thinking of, the smaller, lower wattage module based, when it's really a wavelength.
Yeah, I was referring to the wavelength because that's what it is. It's an IR laser, just like a blue laser, IR.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
So Tony's asking, what size would be equivalent from a 50 watt CO2 to an RF CO2? So technically speaking, the output wattage is kind of the same, but it has to do more with how the beam is concentrated and focused. So an RF beam is tighter, it produces more detail. And so if you're focusing that 40 or 50 watts of an IR beam onto a spot this size compared to this size, it's going to be more effective in the smaller beam. So the thought goes a lower wattage RF laser can actually cut through the same material as a higher wattage CO2. Looking at it from my past experience, I would say you're probably looking at like a 35 watt RF laser to a 50-ish to 60-ish liquid cooled CO2 laser, give or take a little bit there.
Yeah, it's kind of the wattage to the square area of the engrave kind of comes into place. Kind of like getting hit with a needle or getting hit with the end of a ball bat. It's two different. It's even though it's the same amount of force, it's going to be concentrated more so with the smaller dot size. And those freaking RF machines can move. The one like those little Thunderbolts and some of the other ones that I've seen, those things can move. But if I had the opportunity to get me a Thunderbolt or something like that cheap enough, I probably would, because those things do good. The one that my buddy Tim's got at the trophy shop, that thing does awesome on tumblers, and it's fast. Like, it is so fast.
All right.
F Holler's asking, are you still liking the F2 Ultra UV, and do you find yourself using it much? The versatility of the code marking seems appealing. Yes, I use as far as the Galvos go that I have in the shop right now, I use it more than I do any of them. Like I said, I don't do a lot of metal. Most of mine is wood and stuff like that. I do like, especially if it's something that's like, say somebody brings me a jewelry box and they want something engraved on that jewelry box, and the jewelry box has already been sanded and sealed and all that good stuff. The UV is the safest, easiest, less risky way of engraving that. I'll mask it up with some masking, and then I'll take the UV and I'll just run a bunch of passes until I dig through the masking into the material, then clear coat it, then backfill it if I need to or whatever, and be done with it. If you do that with like an IR, especially depending on some clear coats and stuff like that, you can engrave with an IR, but others you're going to cause it to pop and bubble and this, that, and the other. IRs don't do good with the wood. A blue laser, same thing. You're going to generate a lot of heat. So if it's something that's already finished, the chances of the clear coat right around where you're engraving, the chances of that clear coat getting discolored is a lot better with a blue laser, because it's that heat is going to radiate out into the edge of the wherever you're engraving, and it's going to discolor, like especially polyurethane. It'll discolor it. Could cause the edge of it to pop or lift up off the material. So to me, the UV is the way to go when doing stuff like that, especially if you do a line first, just to kind of cut the edge of the clear coat with the line engrave on a UV, and then you come back behind there and clean it out with an engrave. That way you don't have to worry about, some really thick polyurethane or something like that bubbling up, and that bubble, half of that bubble being in the piece that you're leaving in there. So, because you don't think about that until you go to engrave something, especially if it's like a shotgun stock or something like that. That clear coat and that sealer that's on there sometimes is like plastic almost. Like it'll, and if you get it too hot, it will bubble up and pop. And sometimes it bubbles up and pops. It's going to take a chunk of it with it. So UVs are just, a UV is like sanding with 120 grit, whereas the blue laser is kind of like using some 60 grit. you just, if you ain't careful, you'll go too hard and you'll mess something up. I would rather take it down slow and delicately than just go in there with a, grinder, so to speak.
So, a little off topic, but I got to show this. The wall of slabs back there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is I've got friends who are basically crack dealers for me, and one of them just posted this.
Well, look at you, 5/4 board, boy. You hey, if it's flat enough, you can show enough get you some 1-inch thick boards out of that.
And believe me, he's got a pretty tall building for that, so my height is probably like a third of that stack.
Well, if that's 5/4 boards, you can count the boards and see that that's about a 4-foot stack on the bottom right there.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's where a lot of that comes from, is from Matt over there. Yeah, Mark Patterson said, looked at the work area for the IKEA Master and won't work for me. My pre-cut plywood is 400 by 650. So that's a little bit bigger than average, but they're kind of aiming at that 12 by 20 that, Glowforge set that standard so long ago that it stuck, but it also kind of tends to be a more shippable size and things. So, so yeah, it's definitely something to consider. It's not the biggest work area. Now they do have the sling bed that I haven't, it takes the riser, and we'll see how that works well. I'm a little concerned with it as far as being a little more open. And unless you've got a really massive fan pulling a lot of air through there, that generally means you're going to be getting some smoke into your shop. So, but we'll see.
Rich says it's kind of like which came first, chicken or the egg, right there. But yeah, that's why I don't refer to them as a fiber necessarily. I'm referring to the light spectrum of the laser, not the not the mode in which the way in which it's created necessarily. Yeah. Because the oscillating switch is the only difference really between our standard 1064 fiber laser and a MOPA is the oscillating switch, which just allows you one more control over the Q pulse that a regular standard fiber is just a fixed pulse rate. But with the MOPA, you can actually change the oscillation of the frequencies. But anyway.
So Andy's saying, hey guys, I've got a 6-inch inline fan with the exhaust going out of a window on my Rolly Lasermatic, but the smell can get strong sometimes. Is there a good air purifier that doesn't cost $1,500 to $2,000? If your 6-inch fan isn't cutting it, something else is probably the problem. Air purifiers, there are some that work better than others, but they're never going to be good as a solid venting outside system. So a few things to think about, what is your material that you're using? I see a lot of people use the flexible hoses, and they'll have like 20 feet of it coiled up and a lot of sharp bends and such going out to the window. You want it to be as short as you can, and you want nice, even bends. But even more ideal, you're using as much rigid pipe as possible. I created a video, almost 2 years ago now, where I used a lot of aluminum ducting pipe and then just short, flexible ends to the lasers. Twofold. The straight wall pipe, there's less turbulence in there. It moves the air better. The metal pipe is less likely to have holes in it. And then it's easier also to kind of basically seal up with some ducting tape. The flexible pipe is kind of your last resort. It can be fraught with pinholes and other leaks. It's not always easy to get it, a good tight seal around connections. So I would try to keep it as short as you can. Keep it as, keep the bends. You don't really want 90-degree bends. You want like nice sweeping 45s. And that'll help keep moving the air. The other thing to keep in mind too is that a lot of the smell can come from your laser after being used a while. That honeycomb collects a lot of the smoke and vapors, and they solidify in there, and that'll smell just as bad as some of the smoke coming into your shop. So
Yeah, my first question would be: are you pushing the air, or are you pulling it? Because you need to be pulling it instead of pushing it.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Is have your fan as close to the outlet of the room as possible, so that even if you do have pinholes, it's pulling them in versus then pushing them out. So don't put the inline fan right off the laser. Put it as close to the exit of the room or the house as possible.
Yeah, it's easier to pull the smell out than it is to push it out. Because if you try to push the smell out, if you get any little pinhole, that 6 inches of air is going to just start dumping into your room.
And a lot of those fans themselves, some of them will come apart so that you can clean them and such, but a lot of those fans are horrendously leaky themselves. So take some time either if you can seal it up with silicone or even just some flexible tape, electrical tape pulled tight will usually help seal up gaps as well. Or you can use real like aluminum ducting tape, things like that. Just make sure you can still service them. But yeah, you'd be surprised at just how leaky these systems can be.
Yeah. Yeah, I would use some HVAC if I were me. EMT Dave says, at what power level does the IR change to MOPA since the wavelength is the same? The MOPA has nothing to do with the wavelength or anything to do with that. It ain't got nothing to do with power output. You could literally have it wouldn't make no sense to have it, but you could literally have a 2-watt MOPA. It wouldn't make any sense because that'd be very underpowered, but I'm just saying you could. The difference is a MOPA has one more little control. It's called an oscillator. It's a don't make me lie. Something modulation oscillator. Stand by. Master oscillator power amplifier. So basically, it just adds another variable to the way that you can control the beam. It's still the same. Like it's still the same wavelength. It just the way that wave because typically a laser, the wavelength is literally like what it sounds like. It's the wave. Well, just like with AM, you have AM radio, which is amplitude modulation, and then you have FM, which is frequency modulation. It's the same kind of principle. You add that one more variable. That's why AM radio is not real good for music because it's just the carrier wave is just, we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, it gives you one more way to adjust the frequency. MOPAs, you can change that pulse rate to decrease or increase the amount of heat exchange. That's the biggest thing to me that I've noticed that you can do is you can make it run a really aggressive pass, but the pulse rate is so fast that it's still cool. It's still cooler, or you can like change the pulse and make the pulse longer and generate more heat in the material. So it's the way that the beam is created and fired more so than the actual beam itself. It's a rabbit hole. You can go Google it. Like there's people out there that can explain it a lot better than I can, but it's literally just one more like direction, so to speak. It's like having a 3-axis instead of 2-axis control over that light beam. But yeah.
Tony's asking, Steve, if you had to do it over again, would you have considered changing your first CO2 over to an RF CO2? No, primarily because cost. Especially at that time, I had one of my friends who really got me interested into lasers. He had a Universal Systems with an RF tube. I think it was a 25 watt. The problem is to get a rebuilt, recharged module for his laser cost more than my original laser brand new. It was $2,500 to $3,000 just to get a refreshed module for his laser. So at the time, very expensive compared to what I got. For what I was doing, mostly what I was doing originally was just cutting. And so I didn't need the fine spot detail. I could offset my cuts with the kerf adjustment and I was perfectly fine with that. So at the time, no. Now the technology's gotten better. It's gotten a little bit cheaper. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing how it will compare to, traditional water-cooled CO2 that most hobbyists or small business might have compared to an RF based one.
Yep. Now I have been, and I guess if you get the right lens, it's not necessarily the case, but the general consensus, and I don't have one, so I can't say for sure. The general consensus is that if you're wanting the machine for a lot of cutting, the CO2 tube, like the tube type, would be a better suited machine than the RF. Personally, I feel like if you got the right lens, the RF should actually outperform the tube because you got so much smaller of a point that you would think it'd be like a sharper spear tip. You know what I mean? It's like a ballistic tip bullet that's close to a flat nose. But a lot of people say if you're doing cutting to go with a tube rather than the RF. If you're doing engraving, go with the RF rather than the tube. Me personally, I don't know. I can't say for sure.
I think at that point it's just about economics, and it's cheaper to get the water cooled CO2 because in all aspects the RF should outperform it.
Yeah, and that's the science says the RF is like going to be stronger because you're putting you're putting that on that real fine dot. Even if you get a lens to extend the reach. Now I do know that my buddy Tim's, he has two different lenses. One is for really fine engraving, and the other one is kind of the longer focal range. And so I would imagine that, you would want to swap over to the longer focal range for cutting just to get better penetration to the material if you're doing something thicker. Because they don't do a lot of cutting. Like they cut cardboard to make little quick jigs with. That's about it. Like everything else is either acrylic or cardboard. They don't cut like thick materials or nothing. So
yeah, unless you're getting over like maybe 1/4 inch material, I think you're good with the same lens for engraving versus cutting. But yeah, no, it's the RF is going to last longer. You're not going to be worried about the chiller performing the temperature. I mean, if you're in a really, really hot environment, then maybe the air cooled is going to struggle too. But they just generally are far more consistent, better output power per spot size and such. So it's just generally it's the cost. It's the upfront cost of those that usually has deterred people away from them.
Yeah. Split pickle says I need to work up the courage to drill a giant hole in the side of my house for a dryer exhaust vent. Well, where's it at? It was right there the other day. Where'd my hole saw go?
I don't think it's the tool. It's you're putting a big hole in the side of the house. You want to be sure that it's where you want it to be.
Yeah, make sure there's no electrical there.
Yeah. Well, and just in general, I mean, it's kind of like I in reality, I would love to move where a lot of my lasers are, but I don't necessarily want to punch another hole in my shop either.
Yeah.
Especially with the vinyl siding situation, is like once you do that, you want to fix that and cover that back up. You're basically replacing the siding from that hole. You got to tear it all down to that hole and then redo it all the way back up. So, you want to put some thought into where you're going to put that, especially if it's like a permanent, like through the wall hole. Now, in my basement shop, I actually have it going out the small basement windows because the house is nearly 100 years old. We don't have any fancy windows down there. It's like a pane on the inside, a pane on the outside, but it's like 3 different panes. So I just popped the glazing out, popped those panels out, and replaced them with some weatherproof panes, and I have it stuck through that. Technically, I could reverse that as opposed to drilling through the cement and brick foundation that I have to if I didn't put it through that window.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you can take and make they actually sell if you go to like Home Depot and Lowe's, if you have a window in your area that you work, they sell these little things that are made to go in your window. You raise your window up, it sits in there, it expands out to fit the hole, and it has an outlet. They make them for those what is it, like the self-contained air conditioners? I think is one of the primary reason they sell them because you have those little. You know what I'm talking about? Those little air conditioners that look like luggage.
Those are hideously inefficient, and you just should never have one.
But what I'm saying is that's why they made these things. But you can get one of those and run a 4-inch. I think it's a 4-inch hose out of it. If you can't, you can adapt it. I mean, if you're needing to get out of the house, it's better than nothing. Or if you want to make one with your laser or 3D printer or whatever, you can make an insert of your own and just raise the window, set it in there, and then when you're not using your laser, you can take that out. That way, you don't have to worry about birds or weather or anything like that getting in.
Yeah.
So.
No, those portable air units. I mean, I had one in here for a while. I ran it for the better part of a day, and I swear it got warmer and more humid in here.
Yeah, it's never made sense to me either because you have to generate heat to generate the cold air, and you're dumping the heat in the same place as the cold air, and which I guess that's the whole reason for the vent. But you want the
heat creating device on the outside of the house because otherwise you're just they're hideously inefficient and not very effective. So.
Yeah. EMT Dave says, getting my F2 UV this week, suggestions for getting acquainted, period. I'm going to be honest with you, EMT, with X-Tool software and with the UV, just use the recommended settings. UV lasers are one of the most forgiving lasers you'll ever run in your life. Like your chances of starting a fire with it are not good. I mean, I'm not going to say you can't do it, because I have got some stuff hot with it before, but you would have to really hit the lottery to start a fire with that UV laser if you're using X-Tools built-in settings. And they have settings in there for most any material. And although it might not be the optimal setting, there's always room for improvements from my experience. It'll get you really, really close to where you'll be like, oh, that's a good result. So yeah, just have fun. Make sure you take the lens cap off because that lens cap on there you'll forget it if you're not careful. But other than that, I mean, plug it up, do your calibrations that it tells you to do, and rock on. It's a fun machine. Fun machine.
Cool.
Yeah, Rich agrees with me. Home Depot has a dryer vent that installs in a window. Yeah. Klein's got one that's got 2 or 3 ports on it that he made. He made it out of plywood, and you can literally make it out of make you one out of plywood and use some carriage bolts with some wing nuts, and you can just he's got blast gates on them so that he can just swap from one to the other or run them all or whatever. Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Yeah. You just also want to make sure that you're not putting that somewhere that the stuff's going to get sucked back in by some other, window or too close to the, the furnace vent things like that. So and maybe not stick it out to where your neighbors are just like.
I was going to say, if you live in an apartment, just run your hose around the corner to the neighbors. Oh, yeah, Chris, it's a relative term. UV is not a cold light. It doesn't make things colder. It's just relative. It's cold relative to an infrared. It is cold. But it is definitely a relative term. Man, y'all gonna have me all off in the science today. I am at the bottom of the comments here. See there? Rich actually uses one of those. Added a 3D printed blast gate, and it works great. So that's what Klein did. Klein was like, he's in a basement and it's block, so you can't, you're not just going to casually knock a hole in it. And so that's what Klein did. Klein's like, I got this window, and he's like, and I think maybe he had one of those little things already, but he wanted to add another one to it because it's a smaller hose. Instead of having a hole in it that big, he run a couple more, but he's got different because I think Klein's got 6 lasers in his basement now, all total. So,
well, if I got rid of one final thing, I could actually use my chimney from my basement.
Yeah. We're just prepping you for. Yeah, I just sent that email. I sent that back as soon as that popped up in my feed talking about need you to go in and type in a correction. Correct my butt. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they think that. She's like, some of the other people on the team noticed it and said it's not an IR, it's a MOPA. I'm like, we'll see. There you go. I'll let you answer that one, Steve.
Is the X Tool S2 light burn friendly? I don't think. Are we talking about the M2?
Yeah, I had never heard of that one either. I thought maybe you had.
Yeah. So
If you're talking about S1,
anything, what is it? Anything I think from this year forward is not. They've basically said they're going to focus on their software and to provide all the kind of proprietary features that they are adding into the lasers. They're just going to focus on the X Tool Studio or whatever they may call that in the future. Older lasers like the S1, the P2, they are still light burn friendly with some asterisks as far as certain features. But yeah, anything moving forward, I don't expect X Tool to be seeking out light burn compatibility for.
yeah.
Okay, they clarified the S1. So yeah, you can get it up and running. That there's some offsets you need to set for the crosshair. There's some macros you need to add. They do have device files out there that have most of that information on them. So you can run it in there. But honestly, what I do is I'll do any development in Lightburn or another drawing software and just import it into X Tool Studio and run it that way. The software is free from them. So as long as you get your design working how you want it in Lightburn, you can just then export that as an SVG, import it into X Tool Studio, set up your tool paths, power speeds, and let it rock.
Yeah, I've got the S1. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't like running it in Lightburn. Now, like Steve said, I kind of used the S1 kind of like CAD and CAM type scenario. I used Lightburn to do my CAD work and draw my design, and then I took it over into X Tool Studio and used it as kind of like a CAM software just to control the laser. Because I like that pen measurement tool, using the crosshairs, being able to track those crosshairs on the screen. All of those were really, really good tools, and those don't work that way in Lightburn. And so by using Lightburn with the S1, you're losing, in my opinion, you're losing like 25% of the functionality of that machine if you don't use Xtool software. So
his follow-up was, could you recommend something comparable to the S1 that is Lightburn friendly? The two that come to mind be the Alien Cell X1 and or the LaserPecker LX2. Both of those function pretty well within Lightburn. They have a variety of modules for each, so you can kind of pick your power level you want. And both have decent cameras that all work well in Lightburn. And they, of course, have their own software as well. But both of those are ones that have been working pretty well in Lightburn that I would put in kind of the same-ish category as the S1.
Yeah. Yeah, the Alien Cell has a little bit bigger work area, of course, but feature-wise, the LaserPecker is very similar to the S1, and it's the work area of the LaserPecker is not that much smaller than the S1. It's a little bit, but it's not much. So,
yep.
All right, we're 2 hours in, guys. So if you got any last-minute questions, concerns, or whatever, just be sure to throw those in there where we can go ahead and get to them, because we can't stay all night.
Rob Wilson's asking, what hat am I rocking? Well,
speaking of which.
So I'll lean in a little bit closer. It says Itasca State Park, Minnesota. So I had a road trip for work up to northern Minnesota, north central Minnesota around Bemidji. And I had planned a trip, camping/cabin trip. And so I did go up there, and here is a photo of me at the headwaters of the Mississippi River. It's a lot smaller up there. I've been there a number of times, but I hadn't been there in probably a good decade. So I was 45 minutes away. Long story short, there was a mess up with the reservation. They tried to get me into something similar, and it just wasn't working out. So I tried going to a secondary site that I thought about, but ended up just coming home, which actually worked out well. I was able to get some more work done in the shop, and also the weather today was a little bit rainy and cloudy, and it wouldn't have been fun to drive home that. But no, I like supporting our state parks and such, and they had a gift shop there, and so it looked like a nice hat, so I figured I'd pick it up. So, but yeah, it's a fun state park. That it happens to have the headwaters of the Mississippi. And they also have a very large fire tower still there. It's not in operation, but the tower is still there. They used to have about 160 some of these across northern Minnesota, and they have multiple, would site them and kind of give the trajectory so they could hone in on where it is. It's all done by aircraft now, but that was still there. I climbed that years ago. I was hot and tired and didn't feel like climbing it that day, so can't share those views with you. So I did capture some footage. I went on a couple hikes there. Was planning on doing more after getting booked into my cabin, but we'll see. I might still pull together a video of that, and Clack did share out my second channel there. So if you want to follow that, Vintari Outdoors, I'll be sharing more of these kind of adventures and outdoor stuff. Can't promise any sort of regularity in posting, but always fun to have people there and share what I'm doing out in nature.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of looking forward to seeing what you did up there. You said you got rained out, or what?
Well, I didn't get rained out that day. It was a nice day. It was a hot day, and there were, yeah, I did do some hikes there. I did see some. Let's see. I saw a pair of geese with their babies. I saw a loon doing some fishing and a wood duck doing some fishing. And I heard some strange noise. I don't know what it was.
Was it Bigfoot?
It could have been. I mean, there's this big wire fence. It was bigger than a chipmunk. We'll put it that way. I was hiking out there, and I was actually going to set the camera down to do a shot, and I hear this kind of rustling and a snap of something that sounded like more than a twig. And I'm like, okay, we're going to make some noise and move down the trail a bit. But no, hopefully here in the future I'll get out again and be able to share some more, because I actually had planned another off-grid laser video, so I'm gonna have to hold on to that for another week or two.
You got a link for the Laser Pecker LX2 handy? He's asking for links on the two that we talked about were similar to the S1. I dropped one for the alien cell.
Give me just a second. I should have one,
but I haven't got one for the LX2 currently.
Here we go. I'll put it out there.
But the LX2, I just got mine in. I've used it for a couple of days. It's pretty nice. Their software has come a long way. Laser Pecker has really stepped up their game on their software, because last time I used it, it was not as smooth as it is now. I was really surprised. So I'm actually enjoying playing with this machine now, other than the fact that it's a lot bigger than I had expected. So it takes up my table, and I can't really, like, you know, I mean, I guess I could, but with my history of back surgeries, I'm not fixing to lug that thing around. I got my little ratchet hoist. Brandy helped me get it out of the box, but I've got to get the video done and figure out where I'm going to move it to for right now, because I don't want to get it out of here, but currently I got to have that table to do woodworking projects as well. So,
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I still have the big SaintSmart 2x2 machine on my larger assembly table, and I've got the master on that one, and I'm still trying to shuffle some things around to move machines around, but
because I gotta make 10 more of these this week. I did 12 or 13. I did 13 the other night, but I got to do 10 more. As of right now, I think we got 23 of these ordered. So that's going to be a nice little check this week.
Yeah, Barb, it was probably a deer, but there have been sightings of bears and other things as they were coming to life. It was middle of the day though, so you wouldn't expect a lot of those things to be out moving around too much, but it was just a very quiet part of the woods, and then to kind of hear this rustling and a snap, I was kind of like, all right, boy, it's still too long. But
well, the good news is I don't think Bigfoot's a cannibal, so you were probably safe if it was a Bigfoot.
Well,
I don't know that they eat their own.
But Bigfoot. Oh, hey now.
That's right. I called you a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Mick says he's recovering from back surgery right now. A lot. Yeah. Well, Mick, if there's any advice I can give you is stay flexible, but take it easy and just be selective. Don't overdo it. I mean, I got lucky. I had my L4, L5 ruptured on me, and they had to fix it. And then about a year after they fixed it, they had to go back in and remove a little bit of scar tissue out from where the rupture was. And as of right now, I mean, I've got a little bit of residual sensation, like in certain parts of like my leg. There's a couple places on my leg that are still kind of tingly, but the doctor said that when that vertebrae ruptured or that disc ruptured, it actually pressed up against the nerve. And my crazy self went to chiropractors and went to here and went to there. And it was like 5 weeks of running around with a ruptured disc before I got it fixed. And he said that residual nerve sensitivity or whatever could go away or it could be permanent. But at first it was a lot worse than it is now, but it's gotten better. Like that nerve, I guess, has kind of either fixed itself or I've just got to where I tuned it out. But I'm careful, but I'm not, I'm not able to do the things that I've done before, which I probably didn't need to be doing the things I was doing before. I just did them anyway. But I'm just a lot more deliberate, a lot more careful now. So we'll see.
Jared Grady's got a question. He says, notice you go to down cut over compression. Is there a reason? I tend to use compression. If you've got it on a spoil board, it's probably not going to make a huge difference. The compression is nice as you have like thin veneers. And what it does is it pulls the cut up on the bottom and it pushes it down so you don't have the tear out. If you're using solid wood, it's less likely because you don't have that thin veneer layer. And if you have it kind of set down on a pretty clean and solid spoil board, there's not a lot for it to get pushed out through. It's going to kind of keep it compressed up against the spoil board and cut through it. Compression bits are definitely good on plywoods, so that's where a lot of people in cabinetry will use them just to minimize that risk because that thin veneer can still chip through a bit. But in some cases, downcut bits are a little less expensive than compression bits. So if you do break one, it might be a little bit less. We all know Clack's history with bits.
Hey, I break a few every now and then. I use a downcut a lot because with the downcut, if you're punching all the way through the material, to me, it's just as well because like when I use the downcut, what I typically do is if like the material is like 6.5 millimeters, then I'm going to set my depth of cut to like 6.6, 6.7 to punch through it and into whatever's underneath the bottom of it, just ever so slightly to keep from causing it to rip out on the other end. You could do the same thing with a compression, but if I'm doing a cutout with a carve, a lot of times I'll run the down cut just because it seems to me like I don't know. I've gotten in the habit of using the down. I use my Jennies, the compression bits a lot too. Like Steve said, especially with plywoods, because with plywoods, like it'll splinter real bad if you ain't careful with your bit selection. But I have started using a lot of down cuts lately, especially on some of the pocketing I've been doing. But I've got really good dust collection, so I think if you don't have really good dust collection, I think you're better off with a compression bit. That way, it kind of pulls the chips up a little bit better. But or am I got that backwards? No, the upcut.
Yep, the upcut one would, but a compression bit has mostly a down cut. It's just that
last. Compression's a down cut with the upcut tip, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. But I've gotten to where, and one reason too, I'm gonna be honest with you, why I'm using a lot of down cut lately is because I got more of them than I got the others. Because I'm just going to be honest with you, if I'm doing a 3 millimeter engrave on a sign, it doesn't matter
If it's upcut, down cut, it doesn't matter. And a lot of times, if you see me cutting with a down cut, it's only because I don't want to change bits. So, yeah. I don't know if he's talking about you or talking about me, but I know I've been using a lot of down cuts lately. But the part of it is because my order from Cody is on its way and it ain't here yet. Now, if you've got material, I will tell you this: if you've got material that's real thin, me personally, I prefer a down cut because it pushes the material to the spoil board instead of pulls it off of the spoil board. So if you're cutting like acrylics and stuff like that, which I would use an O-flute, but a down cut O-flute is even better to me than an upcut on thin material, because that bit, especially if you go a little hot or something, it'll pull that material up. And as it pulls that material up, you're gonna get some binding. You could break a bit, you could break your material. Work holding could come loose, and then all of a sudden your sheet of plywood turns into a propeller. I mean,
that is true, but it also will push some of the material back down in. And with acrylics and aluminum, that's where you can start getting into some trouble. So that's where having a vacuum bed is really nice.
I don't have a vacuum bed, and they cost as much as my CNC. So there's that.
Make your own.
I've thought about it, but I'll make do with what I got. If I really push comes to shove, I'll throw some, even if it ain't nothing but right in the middle, I'll throw some painter's tape and some CA glue on something in a heartbeat if I need to. But I've always been able to work around it. I've gotten a lot better. I've started using the setting my zero off of my bed surface instead of the material surface, and I am really, really, really preferring that now. Like, I have got to where I don't even do material surface anymore. I can't think of the last time I did material surface.
It depends on the machine, but yeah, I agree. I tend to do that a lot. It just tends to save your spoil board and such.
Yeah, it's easier too if you surface something or whatever, and then you have to go back and try to redo something. It's easier if you're referencing off the spoil board than it is the surface of the material that may not be there no more. Because you took it off. So I love it.
Yep. So, all right. Well, an extra 17 minutes or so. Probably time to call it quits for the night.
Yep. Rich said, don't forget to hit that like button. Yeah, do that.
Please
we
do.
appreciate y'all. And this was episode, what number was it? 180. Don't make me lie. Hang on, look. I can't remember. It's 180 something. And me and Brandy were just talking about this, 182. Me and Brandy were just talking about this earlier, that this is 100. That's 182 Sundays consecutively. Like, I think there was one live that you had some connection issues. You came in, but you couldn't really do it because you were in like the Black Hills or somewhere.
Yeah, there was one.
You were in the comments, but you couldn't stream.
I was literally walking along the trail, the presidential trail at Mount Rushmore during the live stream. And we didn't have decent enough internet back at the Airbnb. So
yeah, but you were still in the comments, but you came into the video feed, but it just wasn't working.
Yeah, it wasn't good. So.
But that's 182 Sundays consecutively without fail, through the surgeries, the storms, the holidays. I think we even did one on Christmas night, didn't we? Wasn't there a Sunday that fell on Christmas? I mean, we've had a couple of them.
I don't know. I know there's been some pretty close holidays.
Super Bowls.
Well, of course, Super Bowl. But yeah, it's been a good track record. Hopefully, we'll keep her going.
But spread the word and tell folks if they want to come hang out, and maybe even learn something along the way, to come check us out, and we will hope to entertain or educate or whatever. And there's the man. Hey, we're talking about all them bits we break, and there he is right there.
Oh, don't be saying the we stuff here. That's mostly you.
Hey, you broke one the other day. You told on yourself.
That's been quite a while.
Yeah. Well, the last time I broke one was because I was trying to cut thin aluminum that I shouldn't have been trying to cut with. Start with.
Hey, I like Chris's comment. You guys see one of those cutting boards with your broken bits?
See one at what?
You did the cutting board with all the 3D printed chunks or the laser cut bits Now you got to do a cutting board with all your broken CNC.
Oh no, because every time I break one of them, I get so mad it goes in the garbage. Like man, because it's sometimes, man, it's just like you don't, because it's just you forget to set the Z or you set the depth too deep, or I mean, it's usually me talking to somebody like that's here when I break them. I don't break them when I'm here by myself.
All I know is I was talking to Cody the other day, and he said he was getting a new boat that he was naming the SS Clack or the Clackley. So business must be good for you, man.
Hey, I order from him pretty regular. I do feel like he should at least put a Clack Shack sticker somewhere in his shop, somewhere.
Well, I think the requirement is you got to hand deliver it.
Oh, okay. All right. Appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Y'all have a good one.
We'll see you next week.